Hello, everyone. In this short video, I would like to share with you some information about the situational leadership approach. And this approach, it's based on the work of Hersey and Blanchard. And majority of content in this presentation comes from Peter Northouse's book, Leadership Theory and Practice. I have an outline here. We're going to provide you with a description of this approach. We're going to look at the different leadership behaviors. Then we're going to look at the developmental levels of followers. Then we're going to look at 4 distinct leadership styles, and then we're going to look at some lessons learned. So where is it coming from? This is, again, one of the most recognizable approaches to leadership, but it comes from the criticism of the behavioral approach to leadership. If you watch my other video on the behavioral approach or the style approach to leadership, we mentioned that there is a criticism that deals with lack of clarity on when leaders should engage in task-oriented or relationship-oriented behavior. And that's what Hersey and Blanchard tried to address that criticism. And initially was developed by these 2 scholars, but over the years had a few iterations. And it's a very prescriptive approach. If we discuss the other approaches to leadership, like the traits and skills and behavioral were more descriptive, this has a prescriptive overtone, and it's widely used in organizational leadership training and development. As I mentioned earlier, it addresses some of the criticism of the behavioral approach, where this approach tries to clarify when a leader should engage in task-oriented and relationship-oriented behaviors. And the premise of this approach is that different situations demand different styles of leadership. If you recall from the presentation on the trait approach to leadership, Stockdale conducted 2 different studies on the traits and found out that situations play a big role in leadership, and that's where the situational approach comes into place. And basically the idea again here that different situations demand different styles of leadership, therefore leaders must adapt their styles to fit the situation. So there are 2 key elements in this approach. There are leader behaviors and then followers developmental level. And the leader's behavior or leader style consists of 2 distinct behaviors: directive behaviors, which are very similar to the task-oriented behavior that we discuss in the behavioral approach to leadership. And the main focus of this type of behavior are on goal accomplishment. And some of the activities involved in that are setting goals and action steps, setting timelines, defining and assigning roles, giving directions, evaluating performance, and others. And then supportive behaviors. Supportive behaviors are very similar to the relationship-oriented behavior from the behavioral school of leadership. And they are directing at creating a welcoming and supporting environment. For example, a leader might ask for input, address issues that followers are confronted, praising and encourage them, showing empathy, sharing information, engaging in active listening, anything that will provide support for followers. So this leadership behaviors could be categorized from low to high on each dimension. So in other words, the leader could have low engagement and directive and high and supportive and vice versa. And the second element here is the developmental level of followers. And that's the situation. So when Hersey and Blanchard said what identified the situation is developmental level of followers, which consists of competence and commitment of followers. When we talk about competence, we're focusing on whether the followers have the skills to achieve the stated goals. And a commitment, we're focusing more from a motivational perspective. Do followers have the willingness to engage in certain activity to work towards goals, and do they have the persistence to persevere? So this approach states that there are 4 developmental levels of followers, and you can see them right here from D1 to D4. In D1, a follower has low competence but high commitment, and D2 followers have low to some competence, but low commitment. And D3, followers have moderate to high competence and moderate commitment. And D4, followers have high competence and high commitment. So over time, if followers are on our organization, their developmental level will change as they move through different experience in organization. So based on the followers' developmental level and leader behavioral dimensions, we talked about directive or supportive, and then competence and commitment of followers. Hersey and Blanchard are prescribing 4 leadership styles. So when we combine these 2 elements, then we arrive at 4 different styles. The first one is directing style, S1 right here in this image. In this situation, a leader will engage in high directive and low supportive behavior. The S2 style, a leader will engage in high directive and high supportive behavior. And D4, S3, a leader would engage in low directive but high supportive behavior. And S4 and S4 style, a leader will engage in low directive and low supportive behavior. So as you can see this in this image, we have these 2 elements, the leadership style and developmental level of followers. So based on these 2 elements, Hersey and Blanchard are prescribing a 1-to-1 relationship between developmental level of followers and the style that leaders should adopt. For example, for D1, when a follower has a low competence and high commitment, a leader should engage in S1 style. In other words, engage in high directive and low supportive behavior. For D2, engage in C2, the coaching style. For D3, engage in S3 or supporting style. For D4, followers who have high competence, high commitment, a leader could engage in delegating style or low directive and low supportive behavior. So I have an activity right here, and I would like you to look at this the model here that I have on the screen, and then based on this the scenarios that I will be providing, I would like you to identify the exact style that you would choose based on the situational approach. So the first one, let's assume that a student who graduated from college last summer, it's very excited about starting a new job and with a large employer, but doesn't have any technical skills required to complete the job. So identify the developmental level of the follower, and then identify the matching style of leadership. Number 2, a person who's been working for a family-owned business for about 5 years has lost her passion for the work as the requirements of the job have been changing. So again, identify developmental level, and then identify the matching style. So number 3, a graduate student who has been working for an employer for about 10 years, it's highly competent, but has a hard time getting started at his job every day. So identify developmental level, and then the matching style. And then the last one, a former athlete who has been working for his former coach for about 15 years. It's very competent and very motivated. So identify again the developmental level and then matching style. So I have here 4 clear developmental levels, and then we have to identify 4 matching styles of leadership. So please write below this video in the comment section your answers. So what are some lessons learned? Very simple. As I mentioned, this approach has a prescriptive overtone. And what are some of the lessons for leaders right here? Number 1, leaders should determine the nature of situation. In other words, the goals that need to be achieved, how complex the goals are, and then identify whether the followers have what it takes to do the job. Do they have the competence and commitment, or do they have the skills and abilities to do the work? And do they have that motivation or willingness and perseverance? And then One other thing I want to mention here, it's important to remember that followers move along the developmental continuum as the nature of the task change. And then, based on the diagnosing situation, choose the appropriate style. So it's one-on-one relationship. That's it for now. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments, and write them in the space below this video.